Hey there, this is part 3 of the Abandoned Manor, and in this tutorial I have simply finished up all the major construction, which is just the front, the back and everything finally finished, and everything looks as though it's complete, though I've done no actual detailing on this. There's no chimneys and vines and little window rooms and balconies and all sorts of little things, and grass and plants and perhaps a tree and small pieces of furniture and very, intricate things that I will be adding to it in the next video, which I'm looking forward to building because I love detailing, which I am sure most of you do too. So for this one, this is, the finished, ready product to have some fun with. But I do hope you get something out of this, and I hope you enjoy the video. Picking up from where I left off in part 2, I'm now going to tackle the back of this building. When I built this, the one thing I wasn't able to see was the back of it, so I had to make this up. And because of the shape of the base being round, I decided to do a semicircle of a little platform patio, and then I realised it just doesn't go with the back of the house. It's out of whack. It doesn't work, so I have to do something else. And I'll keep this bit of foam, but I'll hoik the top. And I also am going to make this into a door, so the second story will look, a little more credible, because I don't know what I'm doing. But this is the shape of the new veranda I'm going to make on the back. And I'm just going to use a bit of balsa wood to make a top and bottom balcony. I'll keep the foam for the height, because it's the correct height. Just going to cut the little foam window shutter off. And I'll widen it up and make a hole for a door. Just glue that little board back on. And I just crudely, I didn't even measure it, I just cut a door hole, roughly the size of the one beneath it, slid a bit of balsa wood in, and roughly drew it in. It doesn't matter if it's rough though, because when you make a door frame, it will disguise the shonky job beneath it. You do want to make sure that the grain of the wood is vertical, so it looks correct when you're making a door. And it's just going to be roughly drawn in with a pencil to make they're just little holes instead of door handles because they're so tiny. Even small beads would have been too big for this. But I just drew it in, stained it and painted it like I do with absolutely everything else. That looks wonky, but the door frame fixes it later. And this is just the patio veranda deck. And I just drew in some lines, and of course I was making sure that the grain was going in the right direction again. You've always got to keep an eye on the direction of the grain so everything comes out looking realistic. And I eyeballed all of this. I didn't measure anything because I can't measure to save my life. So I just eyeballed it and then drew in just a little individual joins and a few nail holes or nails, or, these are just impressions to give an impression. They do work quite well. I'm also going to hack this up because I want it to sit underneath, and of course that'll make it's just a little less of the width of the actual veranda. And then I'm just going to slide it under there to support it, because there's going to be lattice work in front of all of this and hiding everything underneath. I want to look like it's freestanding, and this being underneath there should work quite well for that. And there's the second one. This is, it's going to work out. I know it did, but it was rough going. And with this too, this runny stuff I put on, this black brown wash, it was just too runny. I don't think I've done it quite like this on this, it's about a 1 mil thickness of balsa wood, and it absorbed into it, and I lost the impressions that I had made for the most part, and I had to draw them in again. So perhaps something a little less wet than the wash that I've used. Same happened with the door, but I drew it back in and it wasn't a big deal. But it was a learning curve. I also put a little more of it on this foam, just so it can be nicely hidden underneath. I don't want it seen beneath the actual deck itself. It'll become part of the shadows. I gave it a little bit of a creamy grey kind of dry brushing, and then back with the stain again, or the wash, because I want to age this now. And when I age things, I imagine how it would look if it was, you know, a real object, and I put stain in places where it would be weathered all around the edges, and let it run, and, you know, just be logical about it, and it works out quite well. You can see as it builds up what it does, and this does disappear quite a bit. It will dry, and, you know, you'll need to do it 2 or 3 times to add layers and darker spots and things, but it's a fun job. I love watching it run. And now with these windows, I thought I'd put a few curtains in. These are pretty crudely made, just a tissue with a bit of paint, and dropped the end in the stain to let it just kind of bleed upward. And I put a matchstick in there just so it would sit out from the window a little bit, because I didn't want it touching against the plastic. I don't know if these are the best thing I ever made. They're a little different, but I think next time I would probably do something so they look a little bit transparent. They look a little heavy, which makes them look like paper, which kind of ruins the illusion. But once again, it's a learning curve. They're not terrible, but they're not great. And I just popped it in this one because I couldn't be bothered to make another window. I needed a paint pen, and I didn't have one, and I didn't feel like going and buying one, so I thought I'd make curtains just to fill this empty window. As you can see, it looks a bit clunky, but I will fix that later. I'm going to glue it a certain way when I'm doing the detailing in the next video, and I'll figure it out. Also, the ends of these were done with a fairly thin cardboard, and they got a little wonky from me handling it and moving it around all the time while I was building. So I just need to stabilize these, and I used the cardboard that I had originally made to do the template for the base of the foam base of the house. I just cut the ends off and jammed them in there just to stabilize it and reshape it to make sure it was correct and it would sit on the foam base accurately. It was a nice little bit of corner cutting, that one. I'm glad I didn't throw the template away. And here is the little balcony done. I'm just chucking a bit of dry brush on it for, you know, appearance's sake for the video, but I will leave a link for the video that I did a little while back for making these little railings. They look great. I'm glad I decided to go with this shaped veranda instead of that little curved one. It would have looked strange. It's all glued down, and then can't wait to glue that little bit down. Can't wait to get it done. It's all ready to start now. Gluing it down, let it sit, and then start putting everything together and gluing this veranda on. It looks like a Sims build. If anyone's ever played Sims and you pull all the walls down, this is exactly what it looks like. I enjoyed looking at that quite a lot. And there goes this little roof. I'm just so glad to get it done. It fell off 1,000 times. Maybe 1,001, I wasn't counting. I was also really glad to get this glued down because it improved the look of the building so much, because the back was so ugly before this was put down. And I'm going to put a little roof on, or an awning, and the lattice work. I did that in the previous video as well in part 2. I can leave a link for that as well. It's super basic stuff, but you may not need the link because I'll basically show you. There's no measurements for this because everything's out of whack, so I have to make each piece individually as I go. I just get a little bit of popsicle sticks and I slice them, and then I paint them up after I've glued them. Super glue, that's good stuff. I just glue them up, making each little frame, and then I get a bit of fly screen. And I normally used primer on it and then spray paint, but I couldn't get it to stop being tacky. Even after 12 months, it's still tacky. So I used a paint pen, dries instantly, and it doesn't come off, and it's a lot easier. Don't forget to cut these, if you're doing lattice work, at an angle, not straight up and down. After doing these a few times, I got really quick at making these, and I just thought, geez, I could just have an assembly line. I actually started to really enjoy it because it was so simple to do it this way. Just hang on to it and cut around it, then drop some super glue on the back. And that's all there is to it. These are just really nice and simple, and they look really good. They're fantastic for something small scale. And now just some flocking. This is a really fine flocking that I've sieved. I'll be showing how to make the flocking in the next video coming up. And when you glue it down, I'll say it a million times, but it's so important to make sure you use a water-based glue. Do not use fuel-based glues. It will dissolve your foam. And anyone who's ever used fuel-based glues on foam and you watch it dissolving like acid, I mean, you never make that mistake again. But I always say it because I would hate for anyone to do that, because it's horrifying stuff as you just watch it disintegrate rapidly before your eyes. So yeah, water-based everything on foam. Nice little garnish of the flocking on the cake. I got to do something about this cake appearance. I don't know what to do. I really do not have a clue. I hope something comes to me. I made a corrugated roof because I like that it matched the little roof at the front, and I like that it's a lot easier than the shingles, and I put some supports under it because it was a little bit flimsy. And it's a lot quicker and easier than shingles. Gave it a quick prime with some black, and then a very heavy dry brush with just a grey, a light kind of a grey. And I do a lot of stippling with a very, very rough brush. It's, really well worn, so it makes everything look nice and natural. And you can see the stippling so roughly like this makes it look like pitted steel, which helps it really easily look lovely and a natural rusted look about it. It's one of the quickest jobs you can do, is doing rusted roofs like this. And I use the same brush, didn't even bother washing it, and just layer up from the reddish browns to an orange, kind of rusty colours. You can choose your own, but I go from dark to light, and I start out with the darker ones, a little more paint and over the surface of this, and then I sort of make it a little less in different places, so it's sort of building to smaller sections that are getting lighter in colour the way rust would. I don't know if I described that very well, but hopefully the visual will sort out what I just said, because it sounded a bit confusing. But as I'm just doing a smaller section now in little dabs, I just hold the brush so it's making it basically like a smaller brush. But it's just nice just to stipple it on, and it just makes all these little tiny random pinpoints of rusted looking pieces on the corrugation. You can see how easy this is. It's surprising that when you want things to look natural, the rougher you are, often the better it is, and the easier it is, but the more natural things will look. It's avoiding making patterns that I think is what assists in things looking natural and real. Literally only took me, 2 minutes to do this, and it came out really good. And I glued it down. It's quite a contrast between the shingles and the corrugated piece, but I do like that. I missed the height of these. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't understand the angle, but I did get some matchsticks and put them up a little higher, and there's some more I need to do inside as well because I haven't fixed them yet either. Some little layered bits of foam to make a little staircase or a set of steps, or the things you walk up. I'll be putting a little railing on that later as well. And that's basically it, ready to go. I'm just glad that's glued down. I'll be putting trimming all over this, everywhere, and neatening it up. That will be the first job I do before I start adding other fine detail. And this void here, I'm not sure what to do with it. Perhaps a tree would be nice, I don't know. And the other back looks so much better than it did. It was strange and flat. I was hiding it in all my other videos so no one could see it because it just looked so strange. But it looks really good now, and I'm very happy with it so far. I mean, I could leave it this way, but why do that? The fun stuff is what's coming up next for me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it. I've left quite a lot of footage at the end of this one, so you could get a really good look at it because there is a lot to look at with this one, and often I just kind of quickly skim over it at the end, but I thought I'd make it a bit longer than usual. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you did get something out of this, and I hope to see you next time.